in Nagpur meetup leader, and he's working as a Capgemini as a senior architect, Australia. And we have Vinay Kumar. Vinay Kumar is working as a senior consultant, MuleSoft. And myself is Vandana Gowda. I'm MuleSoft mentor as well as a Goa meetup leader. And if you are part of, if you are interested to be a part of Goa meetup, or if you are interested to speak in Goa meetup, so please let me know either in a Slack channel or in a LinkedIn, so we can ready to host you. And yeah, and we have our speaker here, Mahesh. So yeah, Mahesh is the second time he's speaking to Goa MuleSoft meetup. So yeah, yeah, Mahesh, is introduced to yourself to audience, and yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Vandana, for the brief introduction. Uh, yeah, hello, good afternoon, everyone. See, my name is Mahesh Reddy, and I'm currently working as an integration lead at Yesh Technologies. Okay, and coming to me, I have a good experience in two integration platforms. One is MuleSoft, and the other one is Workato. Okay, and I am 2x MuleSoft certified and 3x Workato certified, and I have a good experience in designing, implementing, and leading and delivering integration solutions in banking, financial domain, NBFCs, at least banking and financial services. Even it covers NBFCs also, retail, e-commerce, different domains exactly. And see, today we'll be discussing the second part of OAuth implementation. Exactly, like already the first session has been covered with the all required OAuth basics. Exactly, like the terminologies involved and what are the different actors involved. That has been completely discussed in the first session. But today, what I'll try to do, I'll try to just cover the basics once again, and then I'll go to the actual implementation of JWT policy in this particular session. See, what in the first session, these are all the things which are covered. What is OAuth 0? Terminologies, grant type, client credentials grant type, resource owner password. See, there are three different grant types which are widely used in the industry. That three grant types we have covered: authorization code grant type, client credentials, and resource owner password grant type. Today, we will be seeing client credentials grant type as part of our demonstration as well. And while implementing this, we will see what is JWT policy and how is it intelligent than normal OAuth policy exactly. And after understanding that, we'll see the demonstration by applying it to a application. Today's agenda is understanding JWT policy and demonstration of JWT policy in MuleSoft. And before proceeding here, I just wanted to give you the brief overview, like what have been discussed in the first session. It will take maybe 10-15 minutes. After seeing that, then we'll go to the actual details exactly. And bear with me, I have a bad throat actually, like most probably I'll be coughing in between. Please don't mind for that. And coming to OAuth, actually, like most of us already we know, it stands for Open Authorization, and it covers authorization framework, not the authentication protocol. Obviously, whenever we wanted to cover the authentication as well, obviously we'll be using OIDC, OpenID Connect exactly. Okay. Authorization covers only authorization, but most of the time we use the terminology combined with OAuth only. And that is one thing which we need to remember always. And authorization, obviously, it is a method to give the restricted access to the any application or any service exactly. Like as we know, for example, like there is one service, there is a REST web service, and there are 4 resources, and you want to restrict the user for a particular service. Okay, then you can go for OAuth process exactly. Like you can delegate the user or the client for a particular service. That can be done with the help of OAuth. And coming to grant types, we have 3 different grant types, right? Okay, before grant types also, we should understand the terminologies exactly and the series of steps involved in the process. For that, I have taken one example and I have explained the entire flow of steps, which what happens for a authorization code grant type, client credentials grant type, and resource owner password grant type. The steps involved in different grant types exactly. See, grant type is nothing but this how you are trying to generate your access token. That will define your grant type exactly. For example, like in authorization code grant type, if you see, there are more number of steps. Okay, if I go to client credentials grant type, you will have less number of steps. And if you go to resource owner password grant type, again you will have less number of steps when compared to authorization code grant type. So it depends on your use case also. That is also discussed, like what in what instances you have to go for authorization code grant type, and in what instances you have to go for client credentials and resource owner password. That is also discussed exactly. Most of the time, as we fall into the backend development, exactly like most of the time we follow these client to client, sorry, server to server or machine to machine communication. And even I have seen most of the times using client credentials grant type in my experience exactly. Oh, so I will take that example, and I will give you the overview of the steps involved in the total process exactly. Okay, but if you wanted to understand the authorization code and resource owner password grant type also and their use cases, you can refer to the video one. Okay, because it will take time. I have to keep the time in mind, right? So I'm not trying to discuss that at this point of time. And coming to the terminologies, obviously there are different terminologies involved in the OAuth process, and we have to understand all these terminologies. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to understand and implement the OAuth. Okay, what are the different terminologies? Resource owner. What is resource owner? Whenever the user, for example, like see, obviously, what is resource server? Whenever we deploy our APIs or applications on a particular server, that particular server is known as resource server. Okay, the server that hosts the protected resource that the client wants to access is known as resource server. If the user is owning that particular resource exactly, then that particular user is known as a resource owner. For example, like I have my Facebook account, okay, and the Facebook account API has been deployed onto this particular resource server, and I wanted to create my Zomato account with the help of this Facebook. Obviously, now this user will use his Facebook account, his Facebook account to create a Zomato account. Okay, there are different ways to create your account in Zomato, but I'm trying to utilize my Facebook account and create a Zomato account. So now I'm the user and I'm the owner of my Facebook account, and I'm trying to use that as a medium to create a Zomato account. Now this user will become the resource owner. Okay. If the person owns the resources, then he is known as the resource owner. Exactly. What is the client exactly? The application that is requesting access to the protected resource. We can call Zomato in this particular instance. Zomato is known as the client. And coming to authorization server, the server that handles the total authorization process, generating the token, validating the token, and all those process will be handled by the authorization server. And what is authorization code? A temporary code that the client receives after the user authorizes the request. For example, like I told authorization code grant type, right? For authorization code grant type, the token generation process will be a little different. What happens is initially we'll generate the authorization code, and with the help of that authorization code, we'll generate the access token. So that particular process is known as authorization code grant type. It is used whenever you wanted to create an account with the help of a third party service. Okay, in that kind of instances, we'll go for this authorization code grant type. Uh, for example, like I wanted to create a Zomato account with the help of Facebook account. In that kind of instances, I'll go for authorization code grant type exactly. Okay, authorization code grant type will generate the auth code first, and then with the help of auth code, will generate an access token. So a temporary code that the client receives after the user authorizes the request. Actually, will authorize the request, then a code will be generated. That code is known as authorization code or access token. What is this access token exactly? Whenever we are trying to send a request to the resource server, we are trying to send one token along with the request exactly to access that particular resource. Now that resource server will send a request to the authorization server for validating that particular token and checks whether the right token has been sent by the client or not. And then if the right token is received, then only the resource server will process that particular request further and then send the response back to the client exactly. Okay, access token is nothing but it is the token which will help us to access that particular resource exactly. Now, refresh token. See, the refresh token is also a token which will have a more lifetime when compared to the access token, and it will help us to automatically generate the access token without again following the further process. For example, like if you see here, what happens, this Zomato client has refresh token. Again, no need to follow all these steps exactly. With the help of that refresh token itself, access token will be generated, and the access token can be used for sending the request to resource server. The previous steps can be bypassed exactly. So in that kind of instances, we'll use refresh token. It depends on the architecture what we follow. Okay, if refresh token is also available, we can use that refresh token and refresh the resources and generate an access token automatically, and then use that access token further in that particular process exactly. Okay, and it will have, see, access token will be having a short lifetime. For example, like it may be 1 hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours, or 4 hours exactly, but refresh token will have a relatively longer time, maybe 1 week or 30 days, that kind of lifetime it will have exactly. In that 1 week to 10 days, refresh token will help us to get the access token automatically. And one more thing, if there are any questions, please stop me and we can discuss and then go ahead exactly. Okay. Yeah. Then scope. The scope is the specific permissions that the client is requesting to access. For example, like there are different resources in a particular service, and specifically I wanted Zomato to have only access to a particular resource or particular method exactly. I can delegate that. Who defines that? The scope will define. The scope will define. And what are OAuth actors exactly? For the entire process, now the series of steps are happening between user, client, authorization server, and resource server. These four are known as actors exactly. The following agents: resource owner, resource server, client application, and the authorization server, who are responsible for the entire process exactly, are called as OAuth actors. And coming to dance, the series of steps which are happening, right? Those are known as OAuth dance or OAuth flow exactly. And OAuth dance or OAuth flow will be differing from each grant type exactly. Okay. See, for example, like if you see authorization code grant type, the series of steps are different. And if you go for client credentials grant type, the series of steps are different exactly. Okay. So that series of steps what are happening between these OAuth actors is known as OAuth dance or OAuth flow exactly. See, because why are we discussing all these terminologies? Because in interview point of view, as well as again in the working standpoint, obviously these are very, very important, and without the knowledge of these particular terminologies, it's difficult to understand. So we are trying to discuss all this exactly. And coming to authentication, for example, like what is authentication? Whenever we I have taken a very good example in the first session exactly, authentication, and to differentiate the authentication and the authorization exactly, we can go through that. But what is authentication? Whenever a client is using or invoking a particular service exactly, first of all we should verify the user's identity. For example, like the client's identity, whether we are receiving the request from the right client or the right user or the right service exactly. If it is not, then obviously we need to reject the request at that point of time only. It means that the person or the service or the client or the user who is generating the request is the right one or not, we have to verify first. Once we verify that, then only we will be giving the restricted access to that particular user exactly. Okay, that is known as authentication. First always happens the authentication, and then it follows by authorization exactly. Okay, the authentication is nothing but it is the process of verifying the user's identity or the client's identity exactly. And it will be happening at the authorization server level only. And authorization is nothing but the process of granting restricted access to perform specific actions exactly. And it happens always after the authentication only. And see, for example, now Zomato is the client, and we have resource server of Facebook, and we have authorization server of Facebook. This is FB, means Facebook. For example, now Zomato wants to send the request exactly. Now Zomato, I have to verify whether I'm receiving the request from Zomato or not. First of all, I'll verify that. Okay, if I verify I'm getting the request from Zomato, then that particular step is known as authentication. Okay, that is done. Now what I'll try to do, see, in the resource server I'll have hundreds of resources exactly. Okay, one among them is profiles. What is that profiles? With the help of, in the profiles, my Facebook account details will be there, and I can give the access to Zomato. But in profiles also I'll be having so many actions. For example, like get profiles is there, or patch, or delete. These are the different actions for profiles. For example, like I can update my profile details with the help of patch. Okay, patch method. And I can delete my profile with the help of delete. And I can get my profile details with the help of get method. For example, in this particular scenario, whether I need to give the access, what kind of access to Zomato exactly? If you observe, I have to give only the get access because Zomato wants my profile details. I should not give the permission to Zomato to edit my profile or delete my profile. Okay, this kind of restriction can be happening through authorization exactly. Okay, and the scope will define, okay, what is the access this particular Zomato client has on this particular profile. That will be defined in the scope. Okay, the scope of authorization determines the level of access the client the client application has to the user's data. For example, like in this particular scenario, Zomato has only get profiles access. It doesn't have the patch or delete access exactly. Why? Because I should not authorize the Zomato to delete my profile. For example, if I give the permission and Zomato wantedly deleted my profile, I'll not be able to access my profile, right? So it is the restricted access. That restricted access process is known as authorization exactly. Okay, fine. Next one is grant, a method by which the client obtains the access token. I told you, right? We have different grant types: auth code grant type, client credentials grant type. What is the way you're trying to generate the access token? That particular thing will be defining grant type exactly. And we have different grant types, and we have discussed only 3 grant types as part of our sessions exactly. This redirective array, if you whenever we are generating the auth code and it has to redirect that particular auth code to the client, right? At that point of time, I need a redirect URI. That redirect URI will be passed as part of the request to the authorization server. Okay, this will be helpful for redirecting the auth code to the client exactly. And this is the flow for client credentials grant type. If you see, there are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps exactly. Okay, in the client credentials grant type. If you see in the resource owner password grant type also, we have 5 steps, but you need to pass even username and password as part of your request exactly. And these are the grant type summary. In what instances you have to opt for which code grant type exactly. Okay, for example, like if you see authorization code grant type, sign up, this is the instance you have to go for authorization. Sign up sign up using third party apps. For example, like in the first scenario I told you, right? With the help of my Facebook account, I wanted to create a Zomato account. Okay, then I can go for this kind of grant type, authorization code grant type exactly. Okay, and what happens? That user is the owner of that Facebook account, right? So then only he'll be able to create the account in the Zomato. For example, like this is Mahesh, and this is Facebook, and this is Mahesh details. Okay, in the resource server, and he's trying to generate the create the Zomato account with the help of Facebook. All these authorization steps are completed and everything is okay. Now some Dinesh or Ramesh or whatever the name is exactly, this guy wanted to use Mahesh account and generate or create a Zomato account. Is that possible? No. Why? Dinesh is not the owner of Mahesh details exactly. Dinesh can create an account with the help of his details. Okay, so that is the reason we are calling Mahesh as the resource owner, but Dinesh is not the resource owner of this particular Mahesh account. Okay, he's the user. In that kind of instances, then we can go for this authorization code grant type exactly. Only the respective resource owner can use the resource and create the account in Zomato. Okay, next, client credentials grant type. See, whenever we have this server to server communication, right? In those kind of instances, we'll go for client credentials grant type. And resource owner password grant type, to get data on the specific user from the client app server. In that kind of instances, we have to go for resource owner password grant type. That clear classification and explanation has been done in the previous session. Please go through that session exactly. Yeah. Any questions so far? Sorry, I'm going a little fast because keeping the time in constraint exactly.
Kirti is asking like what is the exception or time of access token?
It depends on the process, what we set exactly. Like it can be 1 day or 1 hour or 2 hours. Normally, I see 1 to 2 hours is the lifetime of a access token. That would be good. Once within that time, automatically you can use it multiple times. And once it is done, again you have to generate a new token and you can use it.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions, Vandana?
No questions as of now.
Oh, okay. See, I told you like we will be implementing JWT validation policy, and it is a policy which is already available as part of our API manager in the Anypoint platform. Okay, we have JWT validation policy, and JWT validation policy is nothing but JWT stands for JSON Web Token. And what is it? What is it and all? We'll see it in the later point of time within a few minutes exactly. But there is a policy called JWT validation policy inside API manager, which can be utilized, and it is more intelligent than the regular OAuth process exactly. Okay, this policy will have some advantages when compared to the regular OAuth policy. And that is why, first of all, we should understand what is JWT validation policy and why it is more intelligent and why it should be used when compared to the regular OAuth policy. Now, see, I will try to take the same client credentials grant type in this particular scenario. I'll explain the scenario first and see the number of steps. Okay, already this user, okay, has Zomato account. He wanted to order a pizza exactly, and he's using his Zomato account. He wanted to get the details first exactly, and he has sent a request. Okay, he wanted to order the pizza and he searched for pizza. Now Zomato has to get the pizza, and he selected Domino's already, and Domino's should get the Zomato should get the details from Domino's. Now what Zomato will try to do? Zomato will try to send a request to first to Domino's authorization server for generating the token, because Domino's has protected its resources with the help of OAuth policy actually, okay, or JWT policy, whatever policy it has protected its resources. So it is very important, first generate the token, and generating the token, then you have to access the specific resource. For example, like Zomato, what is it sending? It is trying to invoke the token endpoint, and along with token endpoint, it is sending the client ID and client secret and some other details exactly. Now, what authorization server of Domino's will do? It will generate the access token and it will pass the access token to Zomato. Now, what Zomato will do? Zomato will send the request to get pizza types of the resource server, and along with the access token. This access token will be sent and pizza types. Now, what happens exactly? What is the next step? This resource server should validate the token, right? Without validating the token, whether Zomato has passed the right token or not, it should validate, right? So for that reason, what happens? This resource server will send the request to authorization server for validating the access token. Now, server will receive the token and it will check, because authorization server already it has saved that particular access token in the database in the background, and it will fetch and it will validate the token received from resource server, and the token it's generated, it will validate. If everything is proper, it will send the success response. The validation is successful response to the resource server. Now what happens? The resource server, after the validation, it will validate the actual it will process the actual request of pizza types. For example, like there are different pizza types, right? Obviously all those pizza types information will be sent back as a response to the pizza types to Zomato. Now the user will be seeing the pizza types available in the Domino's via Zomato application. These are the series of steps which are happening at this point of time. The series of steps are known as OAuth dance or OAuth flow. Already we discussed, right? Now, if you see here, we are calling it as user, not the resource owner, because these resources are not owned by the user exactly. Okay. Even see, if now Mahesh is ordering, the process is same, and the resources are not owned by Mahesh. Now Dinesh came into picture, and Dinesh wanted to order pizza, and even then the resource server he doesn't own exactly. Okay, so we are calling this particular person who is ordering the pizzas is known as user only, not the resource owner. And client is accessing the resources. So this with the restricted access, that is known as client exactly, and authorization server is handling the total generating the token and validating the token process exactly. So this is known as authorization server. And resource server, all the applications related to our APIs and all are hosted in this particular resource server. Those are all available. If you see here, pizza types also, only get pizza types will be available for Zomato, not the edit pizza details and delete pizza details. All those details will not be available with Zomato. Only the restricted access. For example, like what are the different pizza types available? It can fetch the details. It cannot edit or delete or update exactly. Okay. Now, in this process, if you see Zomato is a very heavy platform, right? For example, like lakhs of requests will happen in a particular day or in a particular hour exactly. In that instance exactly, if you see, I'm generating the token. For example, per day we are receiving 1 lakh requests. Okay, this 1 lakh requests, what happens? 1 lakh users will come into picture and 1 lakh people will generate the token. It means that it will be passed to the Zomato web server will generate a token from authorization server, and that access token has to be taken care, and it has to again invoke the get pizza types along with the access token, and the validation of token has to be done, and then the pizza types response will be passed to the user. But see, already we discussed the lifetime of token can be maybe 1 hour or 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever the time mentioned in our discussions, right? That will be done. That will be there, right? For example, like if I generate a token and I told that token is valid for 1 hour, okay, access token is valid for 1 hour. Instead of generating the token multiple times, okay, in that particular 1 hour, in 1 hour, for example, like think of we are receiving 5,000 requests in that 1 hour. Now, Zomato's web server can use this 5,000 requests, the same token, right? Because that token is valid for 1 hour. Okay, in that 1 hour, I will use the same token. Then at that point of time, what happens? This particular step can be eliminated. Already, Zomato web server has a token and it is valid for 1 hour. The Zomato server, what it will try to do? It will try to send the request. Now, these two steps can be eliminated for that particular 1 hour. After 1 hour, what is the process? Again, Zomato has to send the request to Domino's authorization server, and then instead of 5,000 requests, it is doing only one time. These two steps have been eliminated. It means that sending the request for access token and receiving the access token, these two are done only one time in the 1 hour exactly. Okay, from the next 1 hour again it will be doing it. It means that what happens, Zomato server will save the token for that particular 1 hour in a cache or in a temporary memory, and then it will use for all those 5,000 requests in that particular 1 hour period. And once it is expired, again it will generate the token, and again it will save it in the temporary memory or the cache, and it will use it for the request exactly. Now this is taken care. Who has to take care of? Zomato web server. The code logic has to be taken care of automatically. Normally most of the people do that. Okay, in the industry obviously, otherwise, right, the number of calls between Domino's and the Zomato will be very higher. Okay, you have the provision here, you have to follow it, and you're following it. That's fine completely. But if you see now, in this 1 hour, 5,000 requests have to be sent to Domino's. Okay, now these 5,000 requests are coming to Domino's resource server, and resource server doesn't have the functionality of validating the token. What it should do? Again, it should send the request to authorization server, and authorization server should check the token, and it has to validate it, and it should send the proper response exactly. Okay. So every request it receives, it has to send to the authorization server, and it should be validated. It means that here also 5,000 times it's happening. Here I have eliminated that. Instead of 5,000 times, I eliminated almost like 4,999 times exactly. But here I don't have the chance in the regular OAuth process. If there is a provision which can reduce these particular steps, right? What happens? The network load or the communication between authorization server or resource server, all these response times will be a little varied, right? For example, it will take even if it takes a small fraction of time, obviously it will be counted to your overall response time. Okay, for example, like instead of 5 steps, If you are doing only 2 to 3 steps, obviously what happens? The response time will be higher, okay, very faster, and the performance will be very high. So if you can eliminate this particular step, okay, if you can eliminate this particular step, and if there is a provision to do that, it will be very good. Okay, that particular step will be eliminated with the help of JWT validation policy. What it will try to do, there is a mechanism. Once the resource server receives the request, there is a mechanism to validate the incoming token with a different process, and then it will process the request and it sends the response. It means that every time I'm not trying to send the request to authorization server for validating the token. Okay, see, in the regular OAuth process, you have to send this exactly, but in the JWT validation policy, these particular steps are reduced. See, less number of steps will happen, so the performance of the application will increase, and it is more intelligent than the regular OAuth policy. So JWT validation policy is reducing the validation part exactly, and validation will happen at the resource server level itself exactly. Okay, is that clear? Any questions here?
No question, Mahesh.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And now we should understand what is a JWT. Okay, JWT stands for JSON Web Token. Because this token, right, will consist of JSON objects exactly. If you see here in the header, payload, and signature, it consists of what? JSON, JSON, JSON. So it's known as JSON Web Token, and it is a self-contained JSON objects. Header is a JSON object, payload is a JSON object, and signature is also a JSON object exactly. Okay, if you see, all kinds of JSON objects, but how your access looks like? It looks like encoded format, combination of characters and letters exactly. Okay, characters and numbers, characters and if you see, it is in the encoded base 64 encoded format, and it is separated by a period. Okay, dots. This is header, blue one, and green one is actual payload, and the red one is the signature. Okay, these three parts are separated by dot. If you see here, this is one dot. Okay, and header and body is differentiated or separated by dot, and payload and signature is separated by another dot, and they look in a different color coding. This is header, this is payload, and this is signature. Obviously, the header parts consists of the most important information related to the body of that particular request. See, if you see, what is the algorithm followed for this particular policy, and what is the type of token, all those details are available in the header section. And when it comes to payload, you'll be getting for whom the token is getting generated, and what is the time it has been generated, when it is going to expire. All those important related information will be available as part of the payload. And the signature exactly, like whenever the authorization server is generating the token, it will use a key, and it will use the payload, and it will generate the signature. Now this signature has to be verified at the resource server. Okay, if the signature is not according to the expectation, then it will reject the request. Okay, now your token will consist of three parts. Okay, all those three parts, right? See, if I go to one website called yeah, this is the website jwt.io. I can see a sample token. If you see here, encoded format, and that if I decode that, it will be in the format of this way exactly. See here, this header part red, and purple is in, body is in purple, and signature is in blue. If you see, what is the type of, and when we generate our token, right, we'll paste the actual token and see what are the details. So here we are able to see only minimal details. What is the algorithm followed for this particular token exactly? All those details are available, and even in payload also we have some details, and in the signature details are available exactly. Okay, now this is the way whenever you paste your encoded token here, it will be decoded, and it will be separately shown as per the specification exactly. Now I'll go back to Okay. Now what we'll try to do, we'll try to implement the same policy actually, and see how it works. I'll go to API manager. Okay, API manager, already I have deployed one application, and if you see, this is application policies demo app, and it's already, I'm in already in API manager. And if I see the policies, okay, there are different policies which are applied, and even JWT validation policy is also there. Okay, but what I'll try to do, I'll try to remove all the policies. Okay, because if I deploy the application, right, again it will take some time, so I'm trying to use the existing application only, which is already deployed. Now if you see, I don't have any policies here. For example, like add policy, go to add policy, and then search for JWT. I have JWT validation policy, go to next. Okay, see here there are some important things which we need to consider. What are those exactly? Like how your JWT will be originated. For example, like whether it comes through the authentication header, or whether you're trying to send it in header, or at, wherever you want to do, you can customize that as well. Exactly. There are two ways. See, if you go to your Postman, you can send your token here from, for example, like bearer token, JWT bearer, here you can send your token as well. Exactly. Or bearer token, you can, from here token, you can place your token and you can send it from here. Okay, on the other way is exactly like you can send through headers also. Most of the time they follow these two mechanisms. Okay, either through header or through authorization server. For example, like if I go here, if I want to send through header, I can go here and I can mention it exactly like, and now I should mention from which property or which key, what is the key name we are receiving the token from. Exactly. If you see, it is JWT, right? In attributes, in headers, it will be with the key name of JWT. For example, like while designing RAML, I kept it as access token actually. Okay. And I mentioned it as JWT here. Obviously, the system will not be able to take the token from the headers. So whenever you're trying to design your API specification using RAML, you have to mention the same header name. It should be JWT, or that access token key has to be mentioned here. Okay, so it's very important to specify the right key. Okay, that is one thing which we have to keep in mind. And now I am trying to pass it through expression, and I will pass the token as JWT. Okay, and I'll be sending it. Now, what is the JWT signing method? Okay, see, there are different algorithms you used for signing. Exactly, we have RSA, HMAC, and ES. These are the three supporting methods as part of our thing. But what is the widely used one? RSA. Why RSA exactly? It follows the asymmetric method. What is asymmetric method? For example, like, well, for generating the signature, it uses a different key, and for validating the signature, it uses a different key. See, if you go for symmetric methods, what happens exactly? The security level is less when it comes to the distributed applications. So it's very important to consider the signing method as well. Okay, so even I suggest to go for asymmetric methods exactly, and by default RSA is the signature method followed here, and I can go for RSA itself, and RSA will follow asymmetric. It means that while generating the signature, it uses a different key called private key, and while validating the signature, I'll use a different key called public key. Okay, who will give the public key? The generator of the request, the authorization server, will share the public key to the our resource server for validating the signature. Exactly. And again, you have key length also. You can follow 256 or 384 or 512. I will be going with the same sorry, same default checking it 256 itself. I don't want to change it here. And this is the one which we have to consider, JWT key origin. See, I told you to verify the signature at resource server level. I wanted a key. What is that key? Public key. How I should get that public key? There are two ways. I can get it directly from authorization server saying that please provide me the public key, and I can copy it and paste it here. For example, if the authorization server, okay, has changed the public key, manually again you have to come back and you have to paste it here. Otherwise, in between, what happens? The request will fail. Okay, because the key used for generating the signature is different, and the key used for validating is different. So different means what exactly? It should be from the same set, right? If the set is different, private key, public key will be in sync exactly. Okay, so it's very important. The right private key has to be used for signing, and the corresponding public key from generated from private key has to be available. So it's very important. If you copy and paste it here, there is always a chance of keeping it in mind, and again you have to remember, and again you have to change it in frequent intervals exactly. What is the other way? The other way is the authorization server will provide a key exactly, and with the help of that key it can import the signature public key at regular intervals. Okay, at regular intervals. For example, like authorization server is providing a URL, and this API manager will invoke that URL and get the public key at frequent intervals, and it will save it in cache for 60 minutes. After 60 minutes, when it is expired, again it will go back and invoke this URL and get the public key exactly. Okay, now I have to configure this public key. How to get this public key? This URL to fetch the public key. Now I have to go to authorization server. Okay, and authorization server, I need to configure there some details and then get my details from there, and I have to give this path. See, what is the authorization server? As part of our demonstration, we are going to use Auth0 as the authorization server. There are different authorization server providers in the industry, Okta, Auth0, even there are Azure, AWS auth service providers as well exactly. But top users sorry, top users are Okta and Auth0 exactly. And how to create an account? It's a very simple one only. Go to Auth0. Already I have created and used, right? If you go to auth0.com and if you use sign up, and see again with the help of auth code grant type, right? You can create an account here. For example, like I can use my Google account and create the Auth0 account exactly. Okay, this is this will use the auth code grant type exactly in the background. Okay, multiple series of steps will happen, but you will see very within a few milliseconds your account is getting created, but in the background the series of steps what we discussed, right, all will happen in the background. In this particular instance, see, I am trying to create account in Okta with the help of my Gmail or GitHub or Microsoft account. In this kind of instances, what is the grant type should be followed? Auth code grant type exactly. Okay, this Okta will register with Google, register with GitHub, register with Microsoft, and the respective steps will be followed exactly. Okay, now if you provide your maybe Gmail account here with the help of continue with Google and provide your username and password and continue, if you authorize it, what happens? Okta account will be created with it's with less difficulty, and there is no much difficulty. It will be, the steps will be simple and guided exactly. Okay, self-explanatory, there is nothing much complicated there. And once you create the account, right, this is a page, it will be where you'll be landed, and go to applications, and in the applications part you have to go here. Okay, see, create application, and once you create your application, you have to provide the name for your application. Okay, I have given some random name here, but you can give your own name there. And see, you should select the application type. What is that application type we are trying to follow at this point of time? If you see mission to mission communication, whenever it is a web application or a single page application or mobile desktop or different kind of applications, you can select the respective application type. But at this point of time, I'm trying to use mission to mission application, so I'll be selecting this particular application type as mission to mission. And obviously when I told you mission to mission, it will be client credentials grant type exactly. Okay, and this is the next step. You have to select the API type, select an API, and after selecting that, you have different scopes available. Here you can keep some restricted one, but there are huge number of one, so I'm trying to select everything here, all the scopes exactly. It means that you can use all the different scopes and giving the access to that particular user exactly. Okay, authorize. Once it is authorized, application will be created in the authorization server. Okay, a application has been created. Now if you see, based on your language, the token generation type is provided. If you see here, curl is there. With the help of curl, can I import it to Postman and then generate a token? I'll test it exactly. I'll use curl. I'll import it to my Postman. Okay, see, for example, like if we see no parents, no authorization, I think only one header is there. And this is the body. If you see the body, you are passing client ID, you are passing client secret, and you are passing the audience URL for whom you are generating the token exactly. This is for example, like this is for Zomato exactly at this point of time. Client ID and client secret belongs to Zomato, and this URL also belongs to Zomato, which is generated by the Auth0 server. And see, it will be remembering, okay, this client ID and client secret belongs to this particular Zomato, and audience URL for Zomato is this one exactly. And what is the grant type? Client credentials grant type. If you pass the request here, all the details, you'll be able to generate the token. If I send this, okay, the application, this application, what we created at this point of time, if you see here, I just created one application, right? This one, JWT demo app application has generated the token for me. If I copy this and paste it, okay, this is the access token, and you have some details, scope details, and then what is the time it is taking to expire. It is 86,400. It is almost 1 day. And what is the token type, bearer token type? All these details are available as part of your response exactly. Okay, if I take this token and go to jwt.io, I can see all the details in the decoded format. And to replace the existing dummy token and put the actual token. If you see here, what is the algorithm used? RS256. What is the type of token? JWT. And there is another detail called KID exactly. And if you see here, who is the issuer? This authorization server. And subject, the client ID, and audience, URL which belongs to Zomato exactly, which is generated by Auth0 server. And what is the time it is issued at? See here, Saturday, November 30, 15:53. What is the expiry date? December 1st, 350, some 353 or 453. Yeah, 453 generation, and even 453, 1653. Okay, it means that 1 day validity. IIT is nothing but issued at, and EXP is expired. What is the time? It is and it is in epoch millis actually. Okay, the time is represented in epoch millis, not the regular timings exactly. Okay, epoch millis is nothing but for your date timestamp rate, it will be converting into one number. That is a number. If I change the number, automatically the date timestamp will be changing. Okay, automatically it has been generated. And what is the scope? What is the access you have that is available as part of your main body? And what is the grant type? Client credentials. Even authorization party is a P means, even that is also client ID thing exactly. And the signature. These are the details available as part of your actual access token. Now this token is valid for how much time frame? Almost like 1 day. Okay, almost like 1 day. See that the reduction of the token time and all can be taken care in the authorization server. Now if I go to, I have created the application here, and now what is the thing what I wanted to generate the URL which is used to download the public key. Exactly. Okay. Generate the public key. Where I'll be finding it, I'll go to documentation. Okay, here. If I check for JWKS, see JSON web key sets. Exactly. You can go there. And if you see here, you can go through the documentation. Okay. And if you see Auth0 exposes a JWKS endpoint for each tenant, which is found at this particular URL. If I go to the browser and paste this and check it, I'll be able to see some details. If you see here, the public key, all these details will be part of your. Okay, all maybe if you see as part of this information, right, there are so many details you'll be having. Even public key will be somewhere in this information itself, exactly, with some different name. Okay, see here, all algorithm RS256. If you see here, all those details are available. Okay, this URL will help us to get the public key to validate the signature. Now, what we should do? We should go to Anypoint platform. Where is it exactly? Yeah, Anypoint platform, and I should provide the. What is the other way? I can get the public key from here also. Somewhere in the application settings, right? I'll be having it in the text format, and I can copy it and paste it directly here. But whenever there is a change in the public key, what happens? Again, you need to manually come back and paste in this text box exactly. So I'm automating that particular process. Even I suggest to go for this JWK yes method exactly. And what with the help of this URL, it will fetch the public key and it will cache it for 60 minutes. After 60 minutes, what happens? Again, it will try to fetch because of this process, right? Automatically, after 60 minutes, it is going to, if you wanted to increase it, you can increase it. Exactly. That is fine. Completely. Okay. Fine. Now, what are the other steps? See, at this point of time for a client validation, right, I need some more time to explain exactly. I'm just trying to skip that client ID validation at this point of time. And if I don't skip it, what happens? I have to configure some extra parameters there. So I'm trying to skip this client ID validation. What this particular step will do, the request is coming from the right client ID or not, that kind of verification will happen with this particular process. I'm trying to skip that at this point of time and then apply the policy. And already we are aware of these options, right? Whether you wanted to apply this policy for what is the version you have to apply for, or what is the method or the resource you wanted to apply this particular. If you wanted to customize it, and then you can go for it. If you wanted to apply for all the resources, then no need to do anything here. Apply. Okay, we'll go to logs and check whether the policy has been applied for this or not. Okay, policy applied. And what is the date? 30th 11 and 4:43. Okay, now I just wanted to see what is the application. Okay, fine. I think I have used a different application there actually. Just give me a second. Okay, this was the demo API, right? I will just check whether the same application, because I don't know this particular path what I have set for exactly. Because of that, I may follow policies demo API. Okay. Luckily, I have it. Okay, fine. Okay, slash policies. Okay, one more thing I just wanted to. Okay, the policy has been configured on our API and it is ready. Without that policy, obviously, it will not be accepting the request. It will receive the request and it will validate and then it will process the request. For example, now if I go back, I'll go to go here and I'll go to settings. I'll take the URL. It is HTTP only and it is policies. The resource path is policies. Okay, see here. And now I have to post the token along with this request, right? Exactly. Like what is the configuration I have done? Where should I pass my token? I should pass my token in the headers part. Okay, headers part. What should be the key? JWT. And now I'm not passing the token and not passing the key as well. I'm getting the bad request. Now I'll pass the key and I'll pass the wrong token. We'll see what happens. Now see here, there is a difference. If you're not passing the key, it's a bad request because the important information which is required for the API, you're not passing it exactly. One of the required data, mandatory data. Okay, that key we are passing, the value we are passing as wrong value. Now it is validating the token. It is giving the unauthorized exactly. Okay, so now what is happening? Do I see that in the same logs exactly? Can I see it in the logs? No, exactly, because API manager has restricted it is validating it and then it is not passing the same request to the API for processing. At API manager level itself, it rejected the request. So you are not able to see the logs in the runtime manager. Exactly. Okay. Now what happens? I'll pass the right token and see like what happens. I already generated the token and I have copied it here, right? I'll copy it and then I'll go to Postman. Okay, see, it's a simple application. The application I have developed as a simple set payload, and the response will be welcome to MuleSoft, and it is protected by what exactly? JWT validation policy. Now, if I pass the right token, and I'm able to get the response. If I use the same token multiple times, what happens? See here, I'm getting the request. It means that till 86,400 seconds, it will work. Till tomorrow, it will work. Exactly. I can use the same token. I can cache it somewhere and then I can use the same token. If I keep it for 1 hour, till 1 hour, how many requests I send to the resource server, I can use the same token. Exactly. And if there is a restriction, only one time, for example, like it is like OTP, one-time password, exactly. And it should not be reused. At that point of time, again, every time you need to generate the token, And see, that kind of security can be decided in the authorization server. Okay, you can set those settings. Normally, even authorization server setup, there will be a separate team actually for dealing with all those things. It is not most of the job will not fall into the developer's job exactly. Authorization team will take care of that. But as a MuleSoft developer or a MuleSoft resource or professional, you have to have the understanding of all the steps, like how it happens and also. So yeah, any questions? With this, I can tell that we have completed the demonstration of JWT validation policy. Okay. If you have any questions, we can discuss and then close the session. And thanks for your patience. Almost like, yeah, I think I completed the session in time actually. Normally, I take more time, 10-15 minutes, but this time I am able to finish it on time. Yeah, any questions?
Archana is asking like this public key belongs to only that auth application which you created, correct?
Yes, yes, yes. It will be unique for each and every authorization server we generated. Exactly.
Guys, you guys have any questions? Please let us know. What is the difference between auth and auth 2.2?
Yeah, see, OAuth 2.0 is the latest version which is widely used. There is a lot of difference between 1.0 and 2.0, and a widely used one is 2.0, and it is the latest version. I hope, see, even I'm not aware almost like 1.0, but industry wise, most probably they're not using any, no players are using the 1.0 version. Mostly they're using 2.0 at this point. It's just a version and it is updated and it is more secure when compared to 1.0.
No. Can we set the time period for a token to expire?
Yes, yes, yes. See, there'll be a setting in the resource server. There you can change it exactly like maybe by default it is 86,400 seconds, right? You can restrict it maybe for 30 minutes or 15 minutes or 1 hour. You can do that exactly. And the authorization server team will take care of it. And based on the agreement between the consumer and us, based on that the time frame will be set. It will be discussed as part of our non-functional requirements. At that point of time we can discuss and finalize on the time frame.
How we will set the scope in South?
How we'll set the scoping?
Dharmendra, what you're asking, so I enabled you mic, so you can ask. Okay, how we are set the scope in auth?
Yeah, see here, while creating the application, right, we have created scopes, right? Okay, there we can set it exactly like while creating the application here also. Here after this step we'll have that scopes, right? We can set there. Yeah,
I guess no more questions, right?
no more questions. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Mahesh. Thank you, Mahesh, for the wonderful session. Please take care. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thanks everyone. Thanks for spending your valuable time here. Yeah, thanks everyone. Take care.